My time in the mansion begins in 2003, when I moved in with the rest of Slipknot to begin the recording of what would be Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. The funny thing is that I didn't even stay there that first night. I went out on the town and passed out at a stranger's house. That was par for the course during the first month of making that album, crashing at someone else's house. I would walk up the driveway each morning, hungover and miserable, but I would always wave and say hello to the groundskeeper, who would smile and shake his head at my appearance from the street. My paranormal experience with the mansion started the way most crazy things do, with a dare. Some of the guys and I were exploring, getting the lay of the land and checking out the place. We were running up and down the trails in the back and scampering across the bridge on the side of the house. We ran up and down and back up the stairs, looking on every floor and leaning into every room. No one had chosen their respective bedrooms yet because the majority of the band had not arrived. So we had the run of this decadent keep. The house is the size of a museum. If I can be allowed to gush a bit, the place is fantastic. I was in love with it from day one. We were acting like kids, and I was having a ball until we made our way into the basement. I know there are not many basements in California, but I believe this one was at one time a wine cellar. There was a bedroom of sorts. It had a bed and a lamp against a brick wall. And there was also an odd room just to the left with a strange door that slid to the side. I opened it and darkness answered. There was just absolutely no light inside. No bulb or window or anything. And even though the house's air conditioning had not been turned on yet and we were all sweating to death, this room was ice cold. Someone blurted out, "Get in there, I dare you." So I did. I walked to the middle of the room and smiled as they closed the door. This is nothing, I thought to myself. And then something walked right through me. Seeing as I was in complete ebon blackness, I felt it but did not see it happen. This, however, made it infinitely worse. One minute nothing was happening, the next I was pushed backward with the violation. The only way I can describe this sensation is that it was like being possessed by the winds of Antarctica. No, that really doesn't cut it either. It was like someone made of ice tried to hold me. I cried out a little in the dark, and from behind the door I heard the guys laugh. I scrambled for the door handle, threw it open, and fled upstairs. Everybody was taken aback. "What happened?" they asked. I wouldn't answer. I just walked around for a while, trying to beat some warmth into my limbs and not really accomplishing anything. Unfortunately for the boys and me, this was only the beginning. Gear and amps alike malfunctioned. A whole session was lost because a strange loop started playing in the headphones that would only go away when we finally shut down the whole mixing board and recording unit. Things would disappear and reappear in other rooms that were clear on the other side of the house. Everyone would tell me their stories, but only when no one else was around. They had no idea it was happening to everybody. People staying in the renovated garage under the house would wake up to someone screaming in their face, but no one would be there. Invisible visitors would sit on their beds. The dogs in the house were going ape. I could hear them late at night losing their minds, and then find out the next day after investigation that there was not a single person around, not even a California varmint. I've had so many people caution me against writing this book because of the incredible amount of cynicism that will wash my way like garbage on the waves, just surfing to gain access to my little world in order to bring me down. My response has always been the same. It's not my fault that there are millions of human beings who refuse to believe in something fantastic. Of course, by saying that, I allow myself to fall under the same scrutiny I myself have reserved for people who believe in gods. I offer you this simple solution. Read this book for entertainment, amusement, or peace of mind. I don't really care. About a month or so into my tenure at the mansion, my first real moment happened. But before I regale you with this, I have to give you some geographical background. In layman's terms, you have to know the lay of the land. Let me set the scenery. There are several rooms and wings in the mansion. There's a wing like a treehouse that has a set of stairs and a bedroom that you can enter using a bridge. There are also 3 rooms at the top of the main staircase, a hallway to the left of the stairs that leads to 2 other bedrooms, and yet another staircase, which takes you to 2 more bedrooms and the pool house. There are also bedrooms in the aforementioned basement and finished garage. The place is a massive lesson in futility, honestly. Paths take you to several different places, none of which are the exact location that you were looking for in the first place. One time when I was there alone, I got so lost that I finally gave up, went outside, and walked all the way around the house just so I could go in the front door and get my bearings straight. It is a beautiful yet confounding construction. Anyway, Clown and I shared the 2 rooms at the end of the hallway leading away from the stairs. Last door on the left and straight on till morning. It was essentially one room split into 2 sections. Clown had the half with the balcony and the sunshine, and I had the half with the bathroom and the thermostat. It worked out great for everyone. I later learned it was the same room that Cameron from American Head Charge stayed in when that band was recording there. The story goes that he lasted 1 night. Something happened after that first night that drove him into the control room to sleep, and that's where he stayed for the entire recording process. Someone told me that he never went back in that room, ever. Well, Clown and I were never anything if not completely and utterly obstinate. But in retrospect, I can see why Cameron bailed. On the evening in question, Clown was not even there. He had gone back to Iowa to see his family. So I had the place to myself, and as people alone are prone to do, I was acting like the parents were away for the week. Now I should explain something. There was only 1 door into our bedrooms. There were balcony doors, sure, but there was no way for anyone to enter using those. We were on the 2nd floor, not to mention the fact that they were locked when Clown was away. He always locked those doors when he was gone, and I respected that. I never went in his room anyway. So there was only 1 door in and out of our wing, and that door opened into the hallway. The door was also perpendicular to the bathroom door, creating a sort of L shape in the front corner of our entryway. Basically, whoever came in, our bathroom was the first thing you saw on the left. Get it? Got it? Good. So I was alone in our rooms. The door to our room was shut and locked. The doors to the balcony were shut and locked. But the door to the bathroom was wide open. I was taking a shower, getting ready to hit the town with a vengeance. This was back in my long hair days, so I had just washed a quart of shampoo out of my hair whilst simultaneously preparing to throw a liter of conditioner back in just to be able to get a brush through it. I was in a great mood, singing along to the Bee Gees. What? It was You Should Be Dancing. The shower curtain was open a smidge, and I could see the room from my vantage point. I looked up. A man in a tuxedo walked past the open door, staring right at me. I froze for a half second, then vaulted out of the shower, racing into the bedroom naked, with way too much conditioner on my head. It was literally no longer than a second, but there was nobody there. I was alone in the room. All the skin on the back of my neck turned into white hackles. I searched the room for unlocked doors or windows, but the place was tight as a drum. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that from that angle, Tuxedo Man would have had to walk through the door of our bedroom. Not open it and come in, but through it. After about a minute, it suddenly dawned on me that I was soaking wet and without apparel. So I calmly yet cautiously made my way back into the bathroom to finish my shower. But my joyous mood had fled. I finished my shower with both eyes on the door. Years later, a reporter told me about the man in the tux that was found having hung himself, and I was so freaked out that I cut the interview short, which I never do. It was chilling. The thing is, though, that I didn't get a sinister vibe off the thing. Tuxedo Man was just walking through my world, or I was just taking a shower in his, and probably didn't even care that I was there. Our natural instinct as human/animal combos is to fear what we don't understand, the fight or flight method. But later, when we can rationalize and focus, we can see the true nature of things. My reaction was normal, as was my realization later that there was nothing to fear. Don't misunderstand. There have been times when I have experienced forces that did have ill intent. But Tuxedo Man was not one of those malicious beings. He was just having a stroll. Over the next few months, the activity tripled. One of the boys swears he watched someone walk into his room, stand at the end of the bed, and then slowly dissipate. He was sure it was one of us terrorizing him until the thing f***ed off. After that, he had a hard time even being in the room by himself. He moved all his shit out and waited until the very last minute to go to bed. Another ghost got into the machine in the control room one night as we were making a rough mix of Vermilion. It started looping a section of a verse, so we hit record and began making a remix of that loop. You can actually hear it on the album. It's in between Before I Forget and Vermilion Part 2. Clown told me one that with me to this day. Apparently, he had gotten up one night to use the bathroom. As he was walking by my bed, he swore there was someone in the bed with me, squirming and moving around. When he switched the light on in the bathroom, he looked back and I was the only one there. No doubt you can see how this particular story made my blood curdle a bit. Meanwhile, more and more belongings were being flung about, and the screaming continued. A certain attic was exquisitely horrifying, emanating the sounds of a loud, violent murder for a full night. People started having serious talks about leaving, or at least swapping rooms. The shenanigans in the clown Taylor wing kept on getting weirder and more irritating. Shit kept flying off of my roommate's dresser, no matter how many times he picked it up. One afternoon, we were at the old music shop on La Cienega, Black Market Music, sadly no longer with us. We were looking for acoustic guitars. What we found were stacks of the same black and white photo of Robert F. Kennedy. So of course, because we are a clutch of quirks, we bought them all and displayed them in our rooms. But it was obvious from day one of this purchase that the original inhabitants of 2451 were not fans of RFK, bastard Republican haunts, and kept knocking them off of everything, walls, tables, whatever was being utilized. I should explain that when we moved into the mansion, there was no furniture or anything in place. For Clown and me, we received 2 beds, 2 chests of drawers, 2 end tables, and 2 digital alarm clocks. Knowing Clown's love, red, pure white hatred, for clocks in general, his remained on top of my bureau. Mine was put on an end table, but I never bothered to set either of them, seeing as I got my time off of my nifty Nextel cell phone. The clocks were both wrong the entire time I was there. I never even thought about setting the alarms. So you can imagine my dismay when one night, at around 3:30 in the morning, both the alarms went off. At the same time, even though they were not synced up. Trust me, at that ungodly hour, I checked. There was no alarm, and there was no way they could have been on the same page, so to speak. As I said before, the thermostat was in my room. This thermostat not only controlled the temperature in my room and Clown's little nook, but it also handled the temp for the entire second floor and subsequent wings on our side of the manse. Every morning, I would put that thing on 70 degrees Fahrenheit. In sunny Los Angeles, that is an acceptable and understandable setting. It could get hot as hell outside. I set it there, so coming into the house felt nice and comfortable. Every morning, I put it on 70, and within an hour, the would be on 85. Now, I would still be in the room. No one was touching it. But I would be working on lyrics, and suddenly I'm making my own gravy, swimming in juices I never knew I had. I would jump out of bed, well, lazily slink out of bed, let's be fair, and run to the dial. There it was, 85 degrees. No windows were open, and no doors were letting the cool air escape. The thing was being turned up, and nobody was around. This happened all the time, and it was driving me insane. One night, I was hanging out with friends in my room. Clown was off somewhere taking pictures or playing snare drums, so we had the place to ourselves. We were cracking each other up and taking pictures of each other doing goofy shit like sticking our guts out with our shirts pulled up and flexing like idiots, mugging for the camera with undisguised glee. I had the camera and I was shooting around at other people when I noticed it was hot as again. What the hell? I got up off the bed and sure enough the bastard was locked in at 85 degrees. I had an uneasy notion, so for gits and shiggles, I went back through the photos I had been snapping, and one shot made me freeze and stare for a very long time. There, right next to my buddy being an idiot, were 3 orbs, swirling around and right on top of the thermostat. I still have the photo to this day. I showed everyone else in the room, and suddenly we felt the need to hang out somewhere else. Another night I was sleeping soundly, dreaming about vampires or guns or whatever, when I woke up to music. Now, you may be saying to yourself, of course you heard music, you were living in a recording studio. But the music I heard was not our music. Hell, it was not even remotely close to Slipknot music. It was like old ballroom music, the kind you would hear at a dance hall or a speakeasy in the 20s. It had a jaunty bounce to it, but it was lilting and hypnotic. And for some reason it was coming from my closet. I had a drowsy little moment when I was convinced someone had put a radio in there to f with me. Another crazy idea was that Sid, who essentially was holed up directly below my room, was doing some kind of soundtrack work for a period piece. Either way, I climbed slowly out of bed, opened the door, and it stopped dead. 1 minute there was a party going on, and the next there was cold, hard silence. I took a look around for a radio, but there was nothing there. The closet didn't even have electrical outlets in it. I tried not to freak out, thinking I would get to the bottom of it in the morning. But when I got up the next day, I found out there were only 3 people in the mansion that night. And then Sid hit me with a little chilling knowledge. Nah, man, I wasn't playing music. I thought it was you. What the hell was that? I left it at that and went back to eating M&Ms. Let me tell you something really quick here. My time at the mansion was not all spooks and specters. We had some really good times in that place, even if it was a little out of control from time to time. There was one night when we threw a barbecue and everybody and their mom showed up for it. It was so awesome that word spread down the Sunset Strip that Slipknot's having a party. I remember standing on the veranda with an acoustic guitar. On one side was Sebastian Bach, singing madly and throwing monstrous high fives at anyone within reach. On the other was Be Real from Cypress Hill, who would not let me coax him into a stripped-down rendition of Insane in the Brain, no matter what I offered him. Behind me was a group of little people called Mini Kiss. And yes, they were in full Kiss makeup and costume. This was the same night a certain actor, who I will only refer to as Beak, tried to get me to do crystal meth off of a toilet on the 2nd floor. I kindly refused. The night ended with me naked out on the patio singing Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday by Boyz II Men with 4 dudes I had never met before and have not met since. Thankfully, there is no video of this event, nor were they upset by my lack of pants. I woke up in my room, somehow, came downstairs to survey the damage, and nearly threw up when I realized I was the only one around who was going to clean the place. So I did. It took me nearly 3 hours. I lived in the mansion off and on for 7 months. It had some incredible ups and unbelievable downs. Remember, this was when I decided to give up my whiskey-sodden lifestyle and get my shit together. But I look back with fondness on that time in my life. So, mixed up in all the madness, there was the whisper of what was yet to come, and better yet, what could be. I went through a serious life overhaul, and Slipknot got an amazing album out of the deal. On a humorous note, I broke my toe running up the main staircase one day, but not knowing I had broken it, I walked around on it for 2.5 years before I finally had it x-rayed. It's still broken to this day, There's a pressure fracture on the main joint, making it swell up and turn red when I am on my feet for too long. The toenail filled with blood, then died, causing it to grow irregularly. It's angry at all times, and it shakes when it senses evil. Yes, loyal readers and followers on Twitter, the mansion was the place where Hugo the Angry Toe was born. He never sleeps, he never laughs, he just swells, hurts, and hates. I have learned over the years to never look Hugo in the eye. Those of you who follow me on various social networks have seen Hugo. You have had a flash of my pain. Feel sorry for me. The year 2003 turned to 2004, and I was preparing to leave the mansion. We were making arrangements to finish the album at Rick Rubin's actual home, a place that is almost creepier than the house this chapter is dedicated to. Another band was getting ready to take over 2451, and I was setting up shop in a hotel. For 1 month, I finished my vocals next to a giant stuffed bison I named Smitty in the basement of the Rubin residence. It was finally time to say goodbye, and God bless, to the hulking construct on Laurel Canyon. I was going to miss it in my own weird way. I had spent many nights really f***ed up in that house. I had then started the long process of getting my together halfway through my tenure there, swearing off drinking and devoting myself to being a better man all around. But before I moved out, there was one last happening that still gives me the chilly to this day, 8 years later. So don't say I didn't warn you. Proceed with caution and a clean nappy. My last night in my room, I was alone because Clown had moved out and gone back to Iowa. He had finished his parts earlier and was spending time with his family before the tour fired up. When I looked at his side of our wing, it made me sad to see nothing over there. None of his posters, none of his tobacco pipes, nothing but his rental furniture and a crude set of drapes to keep the California sun at bay. I could have used his balcony, but I never did. It still felt like his area, and I respected that, even though he was gone. I was almost done packing up the stuff I had accrued during my stay, like some posters, a broken acoustic guitar, and a dock for my iPod so I could listen to music. My suitcases were stuffed to fits with all my clothes and toiletries. All I had to do was go to sleep, ship the stuff I would not take back home, and move into a hotel. In fact, that was the plan I fell asleep thinking about. I'm not sure what time it was when I saw the figure at the end of the bed. I'm quite sure it was between 2 and 3 in the morning because the moonlight, which only shone in the window during those hours, was really bright for some reason. Then again, maybe this thing was creating this light. Either way, there was a pale blue-gray to the room, like that time in the morning when you know you should not be awake, but you have to pee, so you peep your eyes to slits and let your mind guide you toward the toilet like a telepath, praying to God you get there without stubbing your toes on the wall, and also hoping you can keep yourself from pissing all over your feet. That was the color of the room. But there was also a dark shape right near my feet. As groggy as I was, I assumed it was one of the guys in the band, possibly looking for something or needing assistance. I was obviously in no mood to help with anything, so I closed my eyes again, if only for a split second. That's when the covers were jerked violently off the bed, and my already fairly chilly semi-nude frame. They were yanked so viciously that my body, which had hooked an arm around the top of the blankets and sheets in my slumber, was pulled up slightly from the waist to my chest. I rose up about half a foot and slammed back down. Well, needless to say, that got my attention, and I shot awake with a start and a furious retort fully formed on my lips. There was nobody there. Not one. I was laying in my bed with no covers, angry and ready to fight air. I looked around the room. I even got out of bed and looked down the hallway. Most of the band had already gone home, so I'm not sure who the hell I was looking for. My caveman brain was all fired up and wanted to scream at someone for waking me up and pissing me off. My logical brain could not get a handle on what had just happened. My body, meanwhile, was telling me to go back to sleep and we would be mad in the morning. So, being a man, that is just what I did. When I came to later and thought about the incident, I did what any man in my position would have done. I had a cup of coffee, got all my shit together, and got the out of Dodge. And I have not been back to the mansion since. I regard those months spent in the mansion as the most frightening and formative I have gone through since I was a child. It was invigorating and terrifying and absolutely out of control at times. I not only ran the lanes on the edge faster than I had done since I was a teenager, but I had also been enveloped in a crazy world in which you were never sure if you were ever alone on any given night, whether the house was crammed full of people or not. These memories tantalize my taste for adventure from time to time, and I find myself looking back more frequently, even though it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, to paraphrase a man more savvy than myself.